tuned to WPPM-LP, Philadelphia, 106.5 FM. Alrighty. Let's see. Okay. So, welcome to the program here. This is Philly Thing Radio every Monday from 5 to 6 on WPPM-LP Philadelphia 106.5 FM. Streamed worldwide at phillycam.org/listen. Got a great show lined up for you today. In the studio is Philadelphia area, more from Lancaster area, jazz musician Dave Wilson is in the studio today, and it's a great honor to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be discussing what's new in the jazz community and maybe some concerts coming up, and Dave's influence and background, and going throughout his career in the jazz genre. And how many different instruments do you play, Dave?
Well, I play pretty much the entire woodwind family except for the double reeds. So
Wow.
I started out as a clarinet player in fourth grade back in Bronxville, New York.
Oh, wow.
And started playing the saxophone when I was about 15 or 16. I just had a desire to create, and something just drew me to improvising. I remember in the late 60s, I had a harmonica. I used to play along to B.B. King, Paul Butterfield. But it was sort of a logical progression, especially after I heard my first John Coltrane record, live at the Village Vanguard. And old school, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, saxophonists, they used to quite often start on the clarinet. And you build up your chops and your air, and you graduate to the saxophone. So I basically focus on the tenor and the soprano saxophone in my performances. Some alto. I taught private lessons for many, many years. I'm semi-retired from that, where I played a lot of alto, and I've come back to the clarinet. I play that in some various New Orleans traditional jazz ensembles.
Wow.
Love the clarinet. And I play a little bit of flute.
Nice. Yeah, it's I never really realized that between the development of starting out in the clarinet and going to saxophone to build up maybe your
Old school.
Wow. I should say you're from the New York area originally. You had a concert there this past weekend or this past week?
I had the privilege of playing at a really marvelous jazz joint uptown Manhattan, West 116th Street, called Silvana. And I was able to take an excellent group in there, basically the Jesse Green trio. Jesse's just an incredible pianist, and a couple of gentlemen in his group, Evan Gregor on bass, Danny Gonzalez on the drums, and we had a great time, and filmed it. Watch out for the video.
Yeah.
Very soon.
Awesome. Is there a place where listeners can find your music on online? And
they can. There's various links on my website, davewilsonmusic.org.
Awesome.
And my last 4 CDs are up on Bandcamp. Dave Wilson.
Oh, wow.
Dave Wilson Quartet. And I have a presence on Spotify, Apple Music.
Sweet.
that
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Cool. Yeah.
And YouTube.
YouTube as well.
Yeah, I've got my channel, Dave Wilson Quartet.
Sweet. Yeah. So it sounds like you have a very the Philly sound kind of had some influence on you with Coltrane and.
There's such a rich history, and I've had the privilege of playing at Chris's, of course, Chris's Jazz Cafe, close by, for the last dozen or so years, and hoping to be back there real soon. But back in the 90s, I used to go to this one jam session. It was just a very cool hip time. Bob and Barbara's, some of your listeners might remember.
Totally.
Bob and Barbara's. They had a jam on Monday night, and I would truck down after my lessons and would get there around 9:30 or 10 and just stay until 2 or 3 in the morning until it finally wound up.
Classic
Yeah,
spot.
that was great. And then Ortlieb's.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if you've ever done Ortlieb's.
Well, that was another place I would frequent, and actually the proprietor of Ortlieb's, Pete Souders, he's a friend of mine. He's from Berks County.
Wow.
And he's moved back to Berks County, and we've seen each other in a lot of playing situations up there, and of course he ran Ortlieb's, and that had some great memories.
Wow. Yeah, was there a strong jazz community in the 90s in Philly? Was it were there more, would you say there was more of a presence?
I think there were more opportunities, and I'll play all over. I've been playing down in the Baltimore, Washington D.C. Area. I've been playing these concerts in Baltimore and Music the last few years. But upstate Pennsylvania, and used to play a couple of joints up in New York City that have closed down since then. But the bulk of my playing really is in central Pennsylvania, south central Pennsylvania, and I've been very fortunate.
Awesome. Yeah. It's like, when did you start getting into recording?
Well, I did my first record at Studio Glenn Farrakhan, Philly drummer, had out in Exton, 2002, and people have been urging me to get into the studio, and recorded an album there through the time, and then in 2006 did another record there, My Time, and I've done some since. Red Rock Studios up there in the Poconos.
Wow.
Great Kent Heckman, great recording engineer, and I've had a couple of my most recent efforts. They've been live records. My most recent one you just heard from Dave Wilson Quartet, Stretching Supreme, and had a lot of fun. That was something I did at Chris's. And it had my good buddy from Lancaster County, Kirk Reese on piano, the immortal Tony Marino on bass, and Alex Ritz on some drum tracks. Tony and Alex, charter members, Dave Liebman Group, but also the great Philly drummer Dan Monahan was on a couple of cuts.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Are there a few different live albums?
Well, before that, I had One Night at Chris's, and that was kind of That was 2019. This Stretching Supreme 2022. And one night, that was sort of live versions of my greatest hits.
Awesome. Yeah.
But I hope to, I have good intentions, good plans of going back into the studio, not sure where, and doing another studio recording, most likely in the spring.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah, I should say that we started the show off today with would be part one of A Love Supreme, Acknowledgement. We got about 5 minutes in to that. That would be on the Dave Wilson Quartet Stretching Supreme album. Just released in 2021. Do you have, are there dates coming up, performances?
Well, I just finished a very busy summer, fall season, and I'm playing at down in Baltimore at this Music. I think it's January 12th, but I usually play 2, 3, 4 times a week, sometimes once a week, and a lot of club dates, some traditional jazz. This past summer, among others, I played at the Scranton Jazz Festival, Central Pennsylvania Arts Festival, had a big music presence, and played down in Washington, D.C. at a summer music series in the Ronald Reagan Plaza. And we had this very exciting date Friday night up at Sylvana, uptown in Harlem, and just different things.
Wow. There seems to be there's a lot of different fests up in like Western PA, kind of like the Music Fest in Bethlehem is kind of one that.
I've actually, I've played that a number of times.
Nice.
Not this past year. Yeah, Music Fest.
They say it's just like one of the best festivals that area has to offer, and it's great. Like, where do you usually find musicians to perform with and collaborate?
Well, locally, it's people that are in my area, because each area, wherever you go, actually, in this country, or if you go to Europe or Japan, there's always like a scene. But and so I've been fortunate. Central Pennsylvania, South Central, it's just has a long heritage of excellent musicianship going back to the days of John Philip Sousa.
Wow.
And, late 1800s, you knew who he was. And very strong support system in the schools, and strong support of the arts. And so we don't want to give it away, but there's just there's historically a lot of good places, good venues to play, and but some of these records branched out and made acquaintances with some nationally known players to make some of these records. There's a bunch of these guys that live up in the Poconos.
Yeah.
Like the late Phil Woods, Dave Liebman used to live up there. And my 2010 record Spiral, that featured Adam Nussbaum on drums, who played with a little bit this past summer. Phil Markowitz. Then Tony Marino and Alex Ritz, who I mentioned there with the Dave Liebman group. So yeah, very fortunate to have that
Awesome.
type of caliber.
Mm-hmm.
And of course,
Yeah.
I want to just say a word about this good friend of mine, last 30 years or so, Kirk Reese, just a giant on the keyboards on the East Coast. Born and raised, lives in Lancaster County, and just excellent pianist. You can take him anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
match up. I'm very, very fortunate.
Awesome. Yeah.
Now, of course, I want to mention Dan Monahan. Played with him several times at Chris's, and Philly's own great drummer.
Yeah, finding a good jazz drummer is pretty important. And I love that style of drumming too. You know.
Well, I'll tell you, like, to me, everything starts with the drums. And it might start with the drums and the bass. Now, a lot of these venues I play, in some ways it's about the money. With the restaurants, some ways it's about the volume. So a lot of these jobs I play, they don't have drums. They're duos or trios, and it's about making a fair living wage.
Yeah. It's,
But it's so much fun playing with an excellent drummer.
yeah. It's pretty cool how versatile jazz can be that way, where you can perform without percussion as a solo or with other horns and different instruments, and it can kind of like mend into different subgenres of the jazz world, you know.
Yeah, and very true. Going back to the 90s, I've always played in a lot of big bands. And right now, I can't say I'm playing in one big band, but it was as early as like 7 or 8 years ago. I remember I was playing in 5 big bands all at once.
Wow.
But that's kind of fallen by the wayside, along with my reading.
Did you ever do like New Hope, or there's a place out in like the Delaware Water Gap, the Deerhead Inn?
I've actually played a couple times at the Deer.
Get out! Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the guys up there. Know a lot of the guys on the scene, Bill Goodwin, and my one record, which we'll maybe play, There Was Never, got nominated for a Grammy. It had this Tony Marino and Alex Ritz, and also Bobby Avey, who was from that Delaware Water.
No way.
Yeah, and the Deerhead, it's still going strong. I've played there a couple of times, and then been at their jam sessions, and it's hanging in there.
It is a pretty cool room, and you can see some great acts going through there.
It's true.
Yeah, do you write originals on your own? Like, will you write melodies and as your own original music?
Yeah, I've been doing that the last 20 years, especially or so, and it was something I would kind of peck away at, really with not a lot of formal training, though. I've got as far as writing music, but I've written a number of original tunes. I have kind of a strength of taking certain, I'm going to call them pop music tunes that I feel I have almost a personal relationship that I really dig.
Yeah.
And then writing an arrangement to them. And there's a couple. One is God Only Knows, the Beach Boys tune. That's on There Was Never record. Also the the live one. And Friend of the Devil.
Oh wow, yeah,
By
classic.
the Grateful Dead. Love the Grateful Dead, and I actually saw Dead and Company last June.
Oh yeah,
in Citizens
yeah.
Bank.
Oh
Were
great.
you there?
I was in the lot. I was in the lot. Yeah, I was my first Grateful Dead actual experience. Like,
Well,
yeah,
let me just put it out
Dead
there.
and Company.
Yeah, I was there in the 70s, and I must have seen Jerry with or without the Dead 30 times
Wow. Yeah.
back in the day. But never really saw him much the last 10 years or so of his life. I don't know.
Yeah.
But big influence of the Grateful Dead.
Wow.
And another on this, there was never. I did an arrangement of Cassidy, which really got some good airplay on RTI.
Yeah, we can go into that here. Sweet.
And this was again on this There Was Never record, Zoho Music. A lot of airplay on that, 2016. And you can see it on Bandcamp, Dave Wilson Quartet. With Bobby Avey piano, Tony Marino bass, Alex Ritz on drums.
Great. This is this is off of There Was Never, Dave Wilson Quartet with Tony Marino, Bobby Avey, and Alex Ritz. And
which is really was a rhythm section for the great Dave Liebman Quartet. They made some incredible records.
Wow. Yeah. So this is the Dave Wilson Quartet's arrangement of Cassidy, Grateful Dead tune. And here we go. Great. Welcome back. So, yeah, that was Cassidy, arranged by the Dave Wilson Quartet off of the There Was Never album, released in 2015. Yeah, great version there. Sounded awesome.
Yeah, you could even hear parts of the melody in it.
Wow. Yeah. Great.
This is what people told me. They go, okay, yeah, I heard part of the actual melody.
There it is. Yeah, now I recognize it. That's great.
But then they said, you left out this one part of the original Dead version.
Yeah, that's the beauty of music. You can interpret and take things into a new direction. Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a recycling process. You know, you can kind of like take things in and yeah, interpret it in your own way.
Yeah, especially with the jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there are there any like local jazz groups that you kind of you enjoy yourself, or you kind of like have seen lately that kind of like took you back?
Well, you know, I've always been a big Joe Lovano fan. I took some studied with him some time ago, and I saw a concert not that long ago in Allentown at the Miller Symphony Hall, Jazz Upstairs.
Oh, wow.
And Jerry Bergonzi, I'm going to get these names up for Jerry Bergonzi, George Garzone, they're headlining it. Just some of the foremost tenor playing on the planet. They're both from and well-known players, educators up in Boston area, New England. But it was curated by a great bassist, well-known figure in jazz history, Gene Perla, who lives up in Easton. And it was a kind of a recreation of the Elvin Jones group Lighthouse sessions.
Oh,
so they
wow.
played the album. And my friend Adam Nussbaum, who lives just moved to Easton the last couple of years, he was on it. So it was the four of them. No strings, no piano or guitar or anything. And these two smoking tenors, and it was pretty darn incredible. And I actually had the privilege this past it's going back this past winter. I did a concert at Chris's with both Gene Perla, who used to play with Elton Jones, and Adam Nussbaum, and we just had a great time. There's some videos up on my site, on the Chris's site.
Oh, great.
Of a couple of cuts from that. And Adam, he played with Sonny Rollins, he played with Michael Brecker, James Moody, Oz Noy, just a host of great players out of New York City for many, many years. And he's living up there in that Bethlehem, Easton area. And I'm actually playing. Next date is November 18th at a great little venue in Bethlehem, the Bookstore Speakeasy.
Wow, that sounds great. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Is that with? Is there a like a lineup for that date, or?
Well, it's a duo. I'm playing with the pianist Dave Roth, great player from that area, and neat drummer George Torella. Just three of us.
Awesome. Is the winter time a busy time for jazz musicians? You'd say, like like holidays and New Year's and.
Yeah, the holidays, not so much New Year's. I uh, I don't really play a lot of, say, I don't know what you call it. I don't play a lot of rock.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and with all due respect, some of them may be really good friends in the business. They play in, you might call it a wedding band, or just friends of mine are music teachers. They'll play in the so-called horn bands. Motown. It's at this stage, it's just not my thing. But so in the winter for me, things usually slow down somewhat. Yeah, I'm still playing the club dates, but gives me a chance to actually work on some stuff.
Yeah. So it's more of like a time for working on material and getting things ready for up and coming projects and things.
Yeah, definitely, exactly, and that's and that's one of the things, with everything else one does in life. You have to utilize your time. You gotta keep working at it, keep pushing it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to set deadlines for yourself. But I've been working on some original material and some of these pop renditions, and I've got some material lined up. I've got 2 or 3 songs that are more like, it's kind of interesting, free jazz, and then a couple of other things that are just, again, these pop tunes close to my heart. And so it's a little dichotomy. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle it in the same project coming up. But one of these tunes I just want to mention, I've been listening to a lot of the great Jimmy Webb, composer, and I wrote this arrangement. I just love a tune he wrote many years ago. It's called Adios.
Adios.
That's going to be on the next record.
Awesome. There you go. You heard it here first. Yeah. Yeah, maybe we'll get into if you want to perform a couple songs a bit.
Yeah. I'm going to play, well, this is an original, and I usually do this on soprano, but it's a tune we do. It's we call it free jazz, avant-garde jazz, but I'll tell you, all sorts of people, they come up and they love it. They go, I really like that song. And I go, really? Because it's got a melody line, a very lyrical melody line, and then it just goes off on a tangent, and it's very spontaneous. But here's a little bit of this tune, On the Prairie, which you can find on Stretching Supreme, live version, the studio, also on There Was Never.
Awesome.
Just getting my gear together here.
Alrighty, and we were back. It was just a great performance from Dave. Yeah, what was the title of that?
That was this original tune, On the Prairie.
Wow.
And I wrote that, I'll tell an audience, I'll say I wrote that in a dream, and it was actually like on a February evening. I was down in my practice area, and it was about, 7 or 8 degrees outside, it seemed. And I had just this idea for the melody you heard, and I wrote it down in about 15 minutes.
Wow.
And the melody, and then I worked out the chords. But really what you hear the melody, and then you hear some spontaneity.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's like it almost sounded like two saxophones at one point.
I was working on my overtones.
Yeah, awesome.
And the a bit of multiphonics.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah. Wow. Like, yeah. Great performance. Thanks again for.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anytime. Yeah. Maybe we'll close out with one more track here, and let's see. We got a few minutes left, but yeah. What? Anytime you'd like to come on the show and perform and talk music, more than welcome.
Well, I appreciate that, Steve.
Yeah, of course. Awesome.
Definitely.
So let's see. We got a few minutes left. We'll be...
Where's that?
Yeah. Was it the...
This is actually... Track 7.
Moving on.
From this Spiral record. And just a quick little story about this record. I had played with Tony Marino, who lives up and we recorded it at Red Rock Studios up in Soudersburg. So we had a run through the night before we were recording, and Tony, I asked Tony, well, I'd like to play with some really good guys. And he goes, well, how about Adam Nussbaum? And then I was talking to Adam, who I'd seen play, and Adam, I said, well, I'm looking for a pianist, and I think Tony and Adam said, well, how about Phil Markowitz, who is just played with Dave Liebman, been Bob Mintzer's group, and also has a place up in that area. And so we had a run through. I'll be real quick, and we were doing that Friend of the Devil. And these guys, they started playing this thing real fast. This is 2009, 2010. And so I go up to Adam, and I told him this story the other day. I said, I don't know if I can hang with you guys. Because we're getting ready to record the next 2 days. Mm-hmm. And Adam said, it's okay. We're here for you. We're here for you. Needless to say, the session the next 2 days went great, but I'll never forget that.
Wow.
And this cut, it was an original. It's called Moving On, and Phil Markowitz just takes a marvelous solo on this.
There we go. Going into Moving On off of the David Wilson Quartet Spiral album. And just want to say thanks again for Dave Wilson coming on the show today. It's been Philly Thing Radio on WPPM-LP, Philadelphia, 106.5 FM in the city of Philly. See you next week.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Anytime. Mondays, 5 to 6. Stick around for Jazz from an Eclectic Mind. Very fitting, great jazz show coming up. And later tonight, DJ Yard Sale presents and The Elevated. So keep your dial locked on 106.5 FM. Have a great week and see you next time. Bye.